Welcome, everyone, to the Blue Collar Startup Podcast, where hard work meets big ideas. This is your home for real talk, real stories, and real strategies from the front lines of life and the business of the trades. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Nelson from Five Towers Media.
And I'm your co-host, Derek Foster, Daigle Cleaning Systems.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
get to work.
Let's get to work. What's up, D? How we doing?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
Counting down the hours now. So got some big life event, and got the birth of the third girl coming along.
Oh,
So
yeah.
tomorrow, so we're super excited, and just the family's growing.
You officially get outnumbered.
We're in trouble.
Yes, that third child changes the whole dynamic, man. When you got two, you got a parent for each. Things are pretty good. As soon as that third one comes in, uh-oh, look out.
Yeah. So things will get interesting here pretty quick, and
Yeah.
but looking forward to it. And we're real excited. I mean, things have been going great. It's been a great start to the year. Um, and I know the same with you guys. You got a lot going on within your company and a lot of positive change and growth as well. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, 2026, I'm very optimistic. So,
Yes. Yeah, we're firing on all cylinders here. So we'll see where we're at the end of the year. See if we hit all those goals we've got set. That's for sure.
yep,
I think we got a solid plan. So moving in the right direction for sure.
that's it.
Yes, yes. So we'll introduce our guest here in a moment. But first, if you haven't listened in a while, we want to make sure we talk about some of the new episode formats that we've got going on. Today is an interviews from the field type episode where we're going to be interviewing someone that is in the field every day. We also have our Let's Ask Bill or Lab, LAB episodes that we're doing. We're actually recording one tomorrow morning with Bill talking about process. I'm super excited about that. If you've seen, we have a Catamount Roundtable episode under our belt here. We're going to be doing those moving forward, as well as some of the women in the trades with guest host Stacy Spector from Catamount Consulting. So excited about all those. So you'll see some of these new formats that were coming out, and of course, we also, if you don't know, we added a Patreon side of the business here. So we've got the Patreon portal. Link will be in the show notes. This is additional content. So we're putting in every episode we are doing the main episode still, just like we were before, but then we also spend about 15 to 20 minutes on the Patreon side and really trying to get into more actionable, usable information for our business owners out there that are in the trades, help you grow and scale your business. So please check out the Patreon. It's a whopping $5 a month. We happen to think it's well worth the $5 each month for the content that you're getting in there. And if it's not, you let us know.
Drop us some questions.
Yeah, yeah,
I had
that's
that on my notes for today. I wanted
yeah,
to make
good
sure we
call.
remind everybody. Feel free to
Yeah.
shoot us an email, send us a submission form through the website, and we'll answer your questions on the show.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be guest specific. It can be, just something about your business, problem you're running into, and we'll run it up with the hosts and people that we have coming on the show and get some answers for you and see what they have to say. So, please send us those questions. And then, of course, we are looking for sponsorships. We've got sponsorship opportunities to help, increase the amount of money that we're donating for tools and tuition. Over the past few years, we've been fortunate enough to have some amazing sponsors that I'll share with you who they are in a minute. But the money that they give us is used tools and tuition for kids at HBCC, at BOCES, and we're super grateful for the ability that we have to do that. And it's only made possible through our sponsors, who are People's, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, Michaels Group, Catamount Consulting, Northeast Construction Trades Workforce Coalition. We recently just brought on, oh my God, my mind just blanked.
Curtis Lumber.
Curtis Lumber. Holy moly. Sorry about that, Curtis
I'm
Lumber.
I'm here for you, Mike.
I appreciate that. This old brain of mine, apparently, I need to get some sort of mental clarity pill or something. So really excited about Curtis Lumber coming on board. Really appreciate it. And then of course, Derek's team over at Daigle Cleaning Systems and my team over at Five Towers Media. Thank you to everybody for all the things that you do to make the show possible and get information out there and being able to have some impact on the trade. So, all right. Without further ado, D, you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, we have William Day back in the saddle. Welcome
Yeah,
back,
here
William.
I am. Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And why don't you introduce yourself and the company that you're with now and what you've been up to?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, as you had just mentioned, I'm William Day. I currently work for Bassett Healthcare Network in Cooperstown, New York. Previously, I had worked for Jersen Construction Group, out of Waterford or, the capital region, doing large, concrete projects. But now, kind of moved in about 4 or 5 months ago, September actually. So, getting into healthcare construction more specifically. I guess technically, if you look on paper, I would be an owner's rep to the construction projects. So I'm the owner's project manager overseeing whatever we are having built at the moment. So a little different dynamic there. We are in the, I'm not physically doing the building. I'm actually overseeing it, and pretty much the quality starts and stops with me now, instead of making that quality. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I'm still working on, trying to wrap my head around it because you spend so much time being the person that's actually doing the construction. Now I'm actually the client or the owner that the construction is for. So, yeah.
So that so help us understand a little bit more about what that means. So, I know we talked a little bit before just about the amount of construction that's happening in healthcare.
Yeah.
So, walk us through the process. How does it work?
Well, there Number one, let me preface it by saying every hospital network is a little different in how they operate, with however they allocate their capital for the year and their budget, whether it's, operationally, facilities and maintenance and or clinical, there's different buckets they put it in. Bassett in particular, they we get X amount for, whatever. I'll just throw out random numbers. Say, we get 10 million a year for the whole network, right? Then we have to kind of look at what not only what needs to be done, but what needs to be done, to be compliant with the state, emergency systems, life safety systems. Then um, there's a whole variety of categories, but it would go into all the way down to like cosmetic changes. The floor looks a little bad, or we don't like the color anymore. That's at the very bottom. Yeah, we just kind of work on allocating funds on what's mandatory and needs to be done to be compliant with the state and federal agencies, all the way down to do we want to expand into a new type of healthcare? Do we need different imaging rooms, so we can do new types of MRI scans, CT scans, fluoroscopy scans, all the way down to there's new technology coming out for cancer. Do we want to open up a new CTC center, like cancer treatment center, and all the way down to that.
How big is
So,
Bassett Healthcare and like
Say,
facility
say that
wise, or
again. I apologize.
how big is Bassett Healthcare in
Bassett
terms
has
of
five, for the network, Bassett has five hospitals. We
okay.
operate out of 8 counties covering approximately 5,500 square miles of area in central New York. So going out to Cobleskill, Schoharie area, all the way out to Hamilton, up to Utica, and then all the way down into Delhi in Sydney.
How much of that do you cover?
I cover every inch of that.
No kidding.
So, but
Wow.
actually, I should have started off with this point that the hospital, Bassett, right now, they saw the importance of having an in-house construction team. So in the past, they always needed work done. So they would get someone that kind of has some construction experience or the facilities crew or some operational lead within the hospital. And they would reach out to contractors, and the contractor would just kind of run it, and it wasn't as organized. So after, many years of that, and now that they're allocating more funds to building and growing the network, they're like, we need construction professionals inside the hospital system. So they hired myself, another project manager. He actually came from Pike. um, and they hired a director of design and construction to oversee kind of, everything that we're doing. And with that, they were essentially helping build or design and build all the projects for the network there throughout that entire network. So up in Utica, if there's a small clinic that needs, I don't know, a new pharmacy, we run that. If down in Delhi right now, for example, I'm redoing the whole roof. So I'm running a roofing project, it's quite varied.
When you, excuse me, when you are looking at that process, so first it sounds like you identify what needs to be done,
Worse, yeah.
right? And that's, there's multiple factors based on what like really needs it, right? Like maybe it's in disrepair or maybe
Yeah.
there's expansion, what
Yeah.
funds are available. And then what does it look like for you now from there? Are you going out and like, do you have contractors you work with, or what does that look like?
Managing payroll and workers' comp shouldn't slow you down. Peoplease PEO delivers a complete solution for hard-to-place workers' comp, seamless payroll, HR support, and benefits management, built specifically for blue and gray collar industries. From pay-as-you-go workers' comp to streamlined onboarding, compliance, and competitive benefits, Peoplease will help you stay protected, efficient, and focused on the job. Visit peoplease.com or call 941-224-8981 to learn more. Make sure you ask for Nick.
What does it look like for you now from there? Are you going out and like, do you have contractors you work with, or what does that look like?
It's all very project specific. A lot of these projects are capital and grant funded projects, so we send them out to bid. We send out a RFP, request for proposal, send it out to selected contractors. After myself and the rest of our team, we do a small due diligence, on the companies that we're sending it out to. For example, right now I'm running 4 imaging rooms. Two of them are CT rooms, and there's 2 fluoroscopy rooms. We did some research on companies that would travel out this far that kind of specialize in imaging rooms. It's a very specific, obviously, you can imagine it's a very specific type of construction,
Mm-hmm.
meaning with working with radiation and all the aspects that go along with imaging rooms. So we that's just a good example of us selecting the contractor. But for a roofing project, we have contractors we work with. We know we have master agreements with other ones, and it's I guess just sum all of it up. Like I had said before, it's all project specific.
Yeah. And then so your role becomes kind of managing all of those moving pieces all the way through the end of construction.
That's a good way to put it. I always have to keep reminding myself because it isn't like when I was working at Jerson or at CPG before them, any of these companies where I'm just dealing with only construction professionals. A lot of these people that I'm dealing with are surgeons, chief of surgeries. They run their departments, and I have to go through them for approvals. Like, hey, do you like the colors? Do you like this floor? They're almost the homeowner because essentially I'm operating in their, where they work. Yeah, it's it's a process. It's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah. I William, can you kind of, for people that didn't listen to the episode that you were on, and forgive me, I meant to look up what number. You don't know what that number episode was, what?
I'll find it. Yeah, I'll pull it up.
So for people that haven't listened to that episode yet, can you kind of just give us what your career path has been leading you to here?
Yeah. Um, Well, I grew up just outside Cooperstown here, and I went to college. I got an English degree, a degree in English literature from Hartwood College. My goal at that point was I was just going to be a high school teacher, and I was going to teach high school English, help kids with SAT, hopefully go on to college. And I wanted to have the summers off and great vacations, and then. But during that time, as I had said in the first episode, I had the amazing opportunity and pretty much the chance to apply to Marine Corps officer school, um, which I did. I went through that. That took me about 2 years. It was a long process to get into OCS, and I had actually tested in to fly fighter jets. So I was going to do that. And I went through officer school, did all that. I actually have my pilot's license, which is nice. I went through all of that, and then towards the end of that first phase of training, I got hurt really bad. I was medically discharged by the Marine Corps, and I had quit my teaching job, and I essentially needed a job to go back to after, I got back from Quantico. I came back to upstate New York, and I had always worked construction in the summers. Growing up, my dad was a union carpenter. My grandfather, actually, I sat down and figured it out. If I had been a full-time carpenter, I'd be the ninth generation carpenter. So
Oh,
last
wow.
time I said fourth, but I actually went and figured it out. It got me thinking. So my dad always got me jobs. Working on job sites in the summer, just laboring, hucking lumber, doing whatever, picking up, sweeping. And then in college, in vacations, summer vacations again, winter vacations, whatever, I just worked as a framer, carpenter, sheetrock guy. And that kind of got me, that gave me a good foundation that when I needed a job after, essentially I had left teaching and had to leave the Marine Corps as well. I had that foundational knowledge of building, though, not at a foreman level or anything, but I also had that leadership training from the Marine Corps. And um, the Marines always, obviously they can be a little cocky with the training they go through, but it's considered one of the hardest leadership schools in the world. If you can survive OCS, you can probably handle anything. So I had that leadership training with a pretty good basis of carpentry and construction knowledge, and a local company here in Cooperstown, Red Point Design Build. I had known the owner, Tim Horvath. I gave him a call. I'm like, hey, I need a job. I just got out of this leadership school. I'd worked for him a little bit on and off in those vacations, in college and everything. And he's like, yeah, come over full time. And he gave me my first start in construction management. I just kind of worked up from there. As I said in that first episode, I just never said no. If he gave me an opportunity to build a house or redo a bathroom or anything, I always said yes, even though, as all of your listeners know, and I'm sure both of you know, you might not know how to do it. You just say yes and you figure it out as you go. So,
Absolutely.
and
That's the
I
truth.
think we do that every day, and yeah, just kept moving up, kind of bounced around companies, and I landed at a very good company, Jersen Construction Group, who during the first time I appeared on the show, I was working with them, and um, as a side note, me leaving Jersen and everything is not a reflection on Jersen at all. I'm still a huge fan. I like to think I'm one of their biggest fans, but this job is 9 minutes from my front door at home. So I get, that was an opportunity I had to take. I have two little kids, and my wife was like, "Come on, dude,"
It's funny you say that
How
because
far was your
that was a
Yeah, how
big
far was the
thing.
commute before?
Huh?
How far was your commute every day?
It was like an hour and a half,
Yeah.
one way.
I remember that. I remember that from the episode
Yeah.
of us talking
Yeah,
about that with
and
that crazy commute you had.
on a personal basis, it wasn't that bad. There's some days where you're just tired. That you don't feel like driving an hour and a half home, or if you want to go out with the guys after work one day, and it's just a lot. But I thought this was an amazing opportunity, and I just had to capitalize on it, make a little executive decision. But that being said, like I was saying, Jersen's a fine company. I'm their biggest fan. I wish them nothing but luck, and I hope, you know, when my last day in the office there, I had said, I hope our paths cross again. I think we left it good. So, to any of the Jersen listeners out there, thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I wanted to bring that up because one of the things that we talk a lot about on the show is the career paths that are available in the trades. And there's often let's just say a misnomer that if you're in the trades and you're swinging a hammer, you're, doing carpentry, you're doing the actual day-to-day labor, but there's just so many organizations out there and we recently talked about this with Caitlin Beaudry from Bonaquisti Brothers Construction about, the fact that there's other roles in construction companies,
Oh.
and in the trades that don't necessarily mean that you're doing the actual trade itself. And so wanted to, kind of talk about that a little bit and also explore, how each role that you had kind of prepared you for the next role in that chain.
It's construction, and I think we're a little biased here. I think it's one of the most dynamic industries that there is. If you're in aerospace engineering, for example, you're kind of, pigeonholed into, dealing with airplanes all day. You know what I mean? But with construction, you can pretty much build whatever you want. Everything around us has to be built. That ranges from you're a sheetrocking guy all the way to a mason to a roofing guy, all the way to earthwork and painting. And I think, that just kind of touches on how diverse our industry is. Pretty much whatever you want to do, you can do. Granted, right now I did get into a pretty niche pocket of the construction industry, healthcare. Prior to me, coming to Bassett, I had never really thought of healthcare. I'm sure, like most of us, have not thought about it. Is you think about doctors, surgeries, nurses, the emergency department, but you don't think that on a daily basis, these places have to be not only built but kept up, with the whole facilities teams, everything like that. But the second part of your question there, what kind of prepared me to get to this point? Every job held something. That's one thing I have always tried to stress to younger people that I've met. No matter what job you're in, and whether you plan on staying there for 20 years or it's just kind of a job to leapfrog off of, gain at least one major thing from that job and then kind of go, and then move on, but like hold on to that. Something positive. I prefer to gain something positive from each position. Granted, there's experiences you're going to have where it isn't the best thing and you had to leave, but just for myself, Red Point Design Build was my first chance to actually manage projects. And what I learned from them was the quality that you need to put into your work. A lot of their houses they're very high-end residential homes for, a lot of doctors here at Bassett actually. And I knew a lot of these people that I'm currently working with from a few years ago because I built their home. But Tim Horvath really taught me, whether you're painting a door or you're putting shingles on, the roof, that has to be done perfectly because they are spending their hard-earned money, for essentially their dream home. And you owe it to them to give the best that you can possibly do and never compromise on quality. Then when I went into millwork after that, working in the city, doing jobs for like the French boutiques like Hermes and things like that, that taught me about exclusivity. And then if you can break into that, there's a whole different type of clientele, and it teaches you to network and kind of break into whatever area you're trying to go to, and after that, I had gone into doing fast food restaurants. I was building Taco Bells. And the big takeaway from that one was speed. from a hole in the ground to turnkey, like you're making tacos or burgers, whatever, it's 120 days per building. That's a
Wow.
really fast build. So it taught me how everything has to be streamlined. The quality isn't going to be as a high-end residential home in Cooperstown, but you could still strive to that. But the speed, if you miss one day, you are behind, and they taught me just like systems have to be in place. And then, kind of getting into Jers in there, they taught me about scale. Those chip plants that they work on, and the last job I was on, with them, you're doing a 40, 50,000 yard pour. It takes years. It can take well over a year to be pouring that much concrete. And that kind of gets back into not only the quality, the networking to get those jobs, but also the systems and the streamlining and the scale. You need all of that. So that was just kind of quickly what I learned from each job. And it's
Yeah.
kind of an unconventional path. I had mentioned that in the first episode there that, I have an English degree. Everyone I work with, they have a construction management degree, they have a physics degree, or, an accounting degree would even help. But
Yep.
it's just because you don't necessarily have the education on paper in diploma form. I think if you can, um, have a clear vision of where you want to go in your career, you can definitely, I'm not going to say talk your way into it, but perform your way into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
Right
was,
way up.
it was episode 67 that
Okay.
William was on previously as well. So I did look at that. And interestingly enough, I actually was reading an article over the weekend that the Wall Street Journal posted. Um, Anybody can look it up that wants to read it, but these white collar workers actually made the switch to a trade. So, there's a lot of not only pushing towards young people to look at it as a different career path, but also a lot of folks that have been in a regular career for 15 years are now looking for the stability and the ability to build stuff with their hands, which is very interesting. Different take on it, but the article is really great if anybody wants to take a look at it.
Yeah. That sounds like exactly what we're talking about. We'll check it
It
out.
is. Yep.
Yeah.
And one thing I forgot to touch on actually in the beginning, that not only am I working at Bassett now, I'm actually lecturing part-time at SUNY Delhi in their construction
It's awesome.
management program as well. So I just teach 3 credits. They have to sit there for 2 hours. I do one 2 hour lecture, so I'm sure they don't love it that much, but I committed to one day or one night a week with them. So again, we're just trying to pass it on everything that I know. And the reason why I kind of bring that up is a lot of them, they're on it's a great program. Number one, it's the oldest one in the country for construction management at the college level. So they're already in a good program, but um, they're going to be such multiple steps ahead because they have a good degree. They're getting exposure to industry professionals, internships, working in the summer. And I think it's important at that point because say they don't like it, they don't waste all that time, when they could pivot into something else. It's kind of the opposite what you had been saying, that some people work a normal 9 to 5 job in some other industry and wind up going to construction, but it can kind of work both ways too. That way you have quality people in the industry as well on
Well,
both ends of that.
and that was one of the reasons, again, to go back to Caitlin Beaudry's
Yeah.
episode, one thing I'd said to her was like that morning I was talking with a friend of mine who was considering making a change. And I was like, going to the trades. And I was like, there's so many companies that are hiring. And, her response was, well, I don't want to, be swinging a hammer. And I was like, well, no, I'm like, you're like a logistics professional. Like there's plenty of opportunity for those types of skills in trades companies. Like if you're able to supervise and manage and, whether it's a project manager or any of that kind of stuff, like there's plenty of that type of work in the trades. And that was, kind of one of the things I wanted to help lay out for our listeners is like, there's just so many paths and so many skills. And, you don't have to have a trades background to be able to move into a construction company, whether it's a Jersen or Bassett or whoever. Like there's so many roles to be played in those companies.
It's varied enough, kind of like I was saying, you could be an HR professional. Every company needs HR, you know? I think one that really surprised me recently, because I was voluntold that I'm kind of about I'm specializing in imaging rooms. Any imaging project or new MRI or CT machines that happen in the network, it's automatically going to get William Day assigned to it.
Mhm.
But one thing I saw that really surprised me, and I had never thought about it, we actually employ physicists for those rooms. They're construction essentially construction professionals, but they go into rooms that produce radiation or involve radiation. And they're construction professionals. They have to do reports. They're doing everything on CAD and this and that and and they're also engineers and they're dealing with that, but they have physics degrees. And to your point, they're not in there swinging hammers, but they have a very specialized set of skills that allow them to work in the construction industry in just a very specific manner. And yeah, that it just took me by surprise the first time I
Yeah.
heard that. You don't think about it, those rooms they're lead lined and everything, but they have to be tested and everything every year actually. And it's just I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I never would have thought about it either. And I mean, it makes sense. You got to know how those particles are bouncing around that room, right? Like,
Really,
yeah,
it's yeah, it's wild.
What
yeah.
are some of the other opportunities for trades workers or blue collar workers in general have you seen thus far since you've been at Bassett? Because again, back to a lot of people don't think of construction or blue collar when it
Yeah.
relates to healthcare. Getting involved with some of the robotics and talking with a lot of EVS departments and
Yeah.
I've seen my eyes have been open to it. It's there's massive opportunity. Do you mind touching on some of the other ones that are there?
Um, so currently, I don't know the exact number, but it's north of 200. Bassett Healthcare Network employs over 200 facilities workers. Facilities, I think that gets a bad rap sometimes, as well as like we think blue collar, you think a janitor, that's just spreading the sawdust on puke in the hallway at like school, right? You think of that. But I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I'm actually looking at our carpenter shop. We do all of the in-house carpentry work and trim, say a new door needs to be put up or repaired. We do all of that in-house. So we employ carpenters, laborers, not necessarily in the unions, but guys that can just do a little bit of everything. Um, Pretty much to sum it down is we need people that can do hands-on tasks and kind of be let, given a lot of line, to kind of operate with because you get so many operational tickets per day or repair tickets and you just need to send people out and you just need people that can actually go. They need to redo some ceiling tile because there was a leak. Okay, we need someone that can, figure out how to do that, all the way down to electricians, HVAC guys, and these hospitals are miniature cities, and the essentially it's going to sound cliche, but the opportunities are limitless in the hospital if you can actually do the hands-on work and be a problem solver and think critically about whatever situation you're in or whatever problem is at hand. There's a variety, almost limitless, all the way down carpenters. I said HVAC, electricians, everything, cleaners. The EVS crew is like the backbone of the hospital, you
What
know.
do, what do the demographics look like, William? I mean, in terms of age, right? What does that workforce currently look like for you guys? And have you been thinking about a plan for how to expand that or what the next generation is going to do and where those people are going to come from?
Would say, if we look at it, about 60% of the facilities guys here are probably over the 45, 50 year old mark. But I was actually really impressed recently. Actually, in my office here, I have one of those old school radiators, right? So my office is about, it's either 10 degrees or 110, but it was leaking, it was pouring water. So I put in a maintenance ticket, whatever, bureaucratic process I had to go through. Dude, and a 20-year-old kid came up and fixed it. And he was like, work, like he knew. And he was like, yeah, I just did an apprenticeship with like steam fitting and this and that. I'm like, this is so awesome. Like, how many more guys your age do we have? He was like, there's like 10, 15 of us. I'm like, this is great. I'm like,
There's
keep it
hope.
up,
Yeah.
And, primarily because we're a hospital, it's all about client care and things like that. We don't really flaunt or, talk about how young our, workforce is, and the facilities guys are kind of, they're kind of the gray men, or, working in the background there. But I was really impressed. He was 19, 20, whatever he was, and went to BOCES, did the whole thing, did an apprenticeship, and yeah, he's in here. He knew exactly what to do, and now it works perfect. And he came in, came out, and that's all he does for the whole network. He works on radiators and a lot of HVAC work. So he kind of found his niche, and yeah, and that's kind of it was awesome. That was pretty much our whole mission in a nutshell.
Have to get him
Um,
on the show.
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah, his name's Derek as well. I'll reach out.
I know we got to jump over to the Patreon side here in a minute, but I just one question I had about something you said earlier in the show, and I know Derek and I were both nodding yes, but you were saying that when you're asked to do something, whether you know how to do it or not, you say yes, right?
Oh,
And then
yeah.
you figure it out.
Yeah.
And obviously, we both agree as business owners and entrepreneurs, we say yes to everything we can, then figure it out. Obviously, people are going to hear that and they're going to be like, well, how are you going to know if you're doing it right, or what if something goes wrong? And you want to just address how you say yes and then figure it out, and how you deal with things when they don't go perfectly to plan.
Others. Well, I say that it's a blanket statement. It goes without saying, but there are going to be times when you're like, dude, I know I can't do that right now, or like I'm going to need some serious help. I honestly I can't even think of an example. Actually, let me put it this way. Because I'm apparently Bassett's imaging guy. So I had a senior vice president come into my into my office. Like I was about to leave. It was like 5:30 in the evening, and he was like, "Hey, we need a new nuclear camera, and we just bought it, and it's being delivered next week." Like, okay, great. He was like, "Well, we need to redo the whole room, and you have 6 weeks to do it." And I didn't even know what a nuclear camera was. So I'm like, okay, send me the details, to buy me a little bit of time. Send me everything. I get going, I start researching what nuclear cameras are and this and that, and realize it isn't nearly as involved. But a typical room for that is an 8-month process to redo. I had 6 weeks. So of course it needs to be done to be compliant with the state. We You need to buy machines after X amount of hours, and whatever. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I set to researching not only what is a nuclear camera, which is for all of you that may not know, is it's an imaging camera that detects radiation, but the radiation comes from the patient. They inject you with a radioactive isotope into whatever body part. It's usually in the stomach, mostly for gastrointestinal issues, and it will radiate, and the waves or the the isotopes that radiate off of that are collected by the camera, and they can get a scan for that. So after learning that, as again, I'm just using this as an example, is I realized that the room we have to do does not need shielding because we're not producing radiation. The radiation's only coming from the patient, at 20-minute intervals. So you shoot them up, you have 20 minutes, they're out. So then I started planning, and like this 6 weeks is actually doable. um, and we worked it out, and actually today was the first day that we saw a patient in that room. It was all done, painted, everything. So I think that's a good example of you need to get this done. Even though I wasn't really asked if I could do it, it was more like you need to figure this out. But knowing that if you have the research skills and just the kind of drive to just kind of be curious about it and know that deep down you don't really have imposter syndrome, but know that you have the skills to actually get it done. I think that was important because I had no idea what a nuclear camera was.
I didn't say told
You
me.
know,
Impressive.
but the
Yeah.
second part to your question there is a time. Yeah, I've definitely shot myself in the foot, like we all have. Definitely. Actually, I think knowing, not to get into like a longer story about that, but definitely knowing when to ask for help is for myself was a skill that I had to learn because it wasn't necessarily an ego thing. I don't think it was an ego thing that I didn't want to ask for help. It was like it was almost kind of insecurity. It's like I told him I could do it, and if I have to go back and ask for help, that's not good and it's going to make me look bad and this and that. And then once I learned that, if you gave it your best shot and you're coming up short and you have to ask for help, but you have options and, some solutions, there's no harm done. I think a lot of employers and even younger guys that are working essentially for me now, if they come to me with a problem, that's one thing, right? That's going to happen. But if they come to me with, they state the problem and then their ideas to solve it and come to me with solutions, that's like that next higher level of thinking. And I think developing that kind of gets you out of those, crappy situations where things do get out of hand after you do say, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Love it, man. Come with a solution, right?
That's I yeah, there's I
Even
think
if it's
you
wrong,
gain well,
right? Like,
that's the other thing the Marine Corps taught me very strongly. It's when you learn map reading and or navigation or land nav, um, they and you're doing these platoon drills or fire squad drills, and you're briefing your team. You get 5 minutes, called a 5 paragraph order, blah blah blah. You're doing it, and if you say we're going, our bearing is 270, okay, and you go the complete opposite way. You're like, guys, we're going over that hill right there, and you really have to go over that hill behind you. They don't care. They want to teach you to have the drive to be like, and have conviction in your decisions and be like, listen, we're doing this, we're going right now. Because they can teach you how to use a compass, for
yeah,
future reference. They're like, they could teach you the more technical skill, but that drive and like the willingness to be like, all right, listen, we're doing it, we're plowing forward, we're going to trip, on our faces multiple times, but we're going to keep getting up and keep going and find a solution to each obstacle. And I think that really, that stayed with me forever, or it will stay with me forever.
yeah, yeah. Any decision is better than no decision, right?
I mean, that I keep going back to the Marine Corps thing, but they have so many sayings that it's a cult in its own way. But it's they've always said have a bias for action. When in doubt, have a bias for action.
Love it.
So just
So we'll,
so, yeah,
we'll we're gonna jump over to the Patreon side of things here. I know we're
of
getting short on
course,
time. If people want to learn more about Bassett Healthcare, if they want to join the construction team over there, how do
of
they find
course.
you guys?
Well, Bassett.org. You can hop on there. The employment page is like front and center. We're always looking for people. Actually, not to plug a job
Oh,
position
plug the job.
available. We are looking for one of the regional maintenance supervisors in Oneonta Hospital. So if you have HVAC knowledge, any manager role here is very HVAC heavy in the healthcare industry because of the need for positive, negative pressures in different zones,
Yeah,
especially surgical rooms. Um, you have HVAC and electrical experience and plumbing. Those basic skills there apply. We're actively interviewing people, and we're having a hard time finding a suitable candidate, but especially HVAC.
love it, love it, love it.
But yeah, you can look me up. You can always throw my email in the show notes, whatever. If anyone needs anything, send me an email. We'll figure it out.
All right, we'll do that. Everybody, we're gonna jump over to the Patreon side of things here. So, check the link in the show notes here if you want to join us. Where I think we're going to talk a little bit more about some of those systems and things that Williams used over the years that he learned at some of his other jobs that help him today in his current role. Appreciate everybody for listening. Appreciate all of our sponsors, and you'll hear from us next week.
And that wraps up another episode of Blue Collar Startup. A big thank you to our sponsors, 5 Towers Media, Daigle Cleaning Systems, Daigle Fire Solutions, The Michaels Group, Martin Electric, MLB Construction, Bonaccio Construction, Peoplease, and Catamount Consulting for making this podcast possible. And thank you for tuning in. If you learned something or felt inspired, connect with us on our website at bluecollarstartup.io or email us at hardhat.bcsu@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your questions and topic ideas. Help us spread the word by sharing the show and following us on social media for updates. Until next time, keep on building, keep on dreaming, and keep hustling like your future depends on it.